rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events, this is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. And, I've got to step out of the way because the background tonight is very, very nice. So let me go ahead. Let me see. I can move out of the way over here. There we go. I get you the full view of the gargoyle that's standing behind me. Yeah, that's another one of, Buddy Weiser's fantastic contributions to the show. Not like he needs, not like he necessarily needs any more, but woo, there we go. Yeah, gargoyles, in the past, they were actually designed or built, and superstitious wise, they were to ward off evil spirits, and that's why they were made kind of ugly looking and so on and so forth. So yeah, hopefully that'll keep the Democrat morons off my back, man. Let me tell you. All right. Well, day slipped by incredibly fast for me, which is kind of odd considering, what's going on with everything. But yeah, it kind of got to a point where it was sort of slipping away from me, but anyway, here I am here, you're here, we're all here, and so we can start talking about some wonderful things that are going on. Let's go ahead and get things kicked off tonight. I don't mean to be yelling, but there you go. Let's go ahead and get some things kicked off right here on the program, beginning with the Pledge of Allegiance being led by none other than our own 3 Chevy. So here we go. If you are of mine, please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one. And if not, of course, put your hand over your heart and join in with 3 Chevy as he recites and leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And of course, I thank you for that wonderful rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would like to hear your version of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself reciting it or doing it in your own style. And then, of course, once you do that, take that audio file that was generated, attach it to an email, and ship it off to me. Send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. And as you can tell, somebody has arrived. Here in the studio domicile here. I'm not quite sure who it is, but whoever it is, they are. Anyway, they're going to get stuck with Angus, so because I'm going to shut the door here to the studio. So there we go. All right, let's go ahead and also let everybody know that, hey, if you want to get these fantastic shirts like what I'm wearing the Liberty Bell. The Liberty Bell version of the We the People. Okay, the Liberty Bell We the People cotton polo shirt from theflagshirt.com. And I got to tell you, they are having a fantastic sale right now. This is probably some of the best pricing I think I've ever seen in terms of that. If you want to get patriotized for election day, you've got today only 50% off site-wide by using election 50. That's election 50 as the promo code at checkout. This is for today only. Okay? For today only. Get patriotized for election day. They have 50% off all of their stuff. Everything. It's the entire site is 50% off. You could get some of the shirts that I wear, you could get them for less than I paid. Totally. Go to theflagshirt.com and get patriotized for election day by getting 50% off site-wide using the code election50. That's election50 in the promo code box at checkout. And don't forget, if you decide to take advantage of this, you can also get, by picking up orders $75 or more, you can also get free shipping. It's today only, getting patriotized for election day. Check it out at theflagshirt.com. That's theflagshirt, all together, all one word, .com. Get yourself 50% off site-wide by using the code election50. And you could look like I do on most occasions. Not my face, obviously, because I have a face for radio. But anyway, go to theflagshirt.com and get yourself patriotized. All right, folks. Whoops. Well, that was because I'm in the wrong screen. I forgot how to operate stuff. Anyway, so there you go. You can go and check that out. It's really good clothing, good patriotic styles. It's run by a veteran. Great stuff. Anyway, well, I've told you guys on this program a couple of times. I've told you guys on the program a couple of times that I'm not much of a CNN watcher, but I got to tell you, with this Scott Jennings guy, wow, I'm going to hang on and keep an eye on him, because he is just killing it. He is bringing the receipts. He is bringing the smackdown on all of those loony leftists over on CNN. What am I talking about? Well, right here. This from the Daily Fetched. CNN contributor gives Dem strategist a reality check. He says, your party is in trouble. So they were on a panel, the two of them. It was a Republican strategist and CNN contributor Scott Jennings, of course, talking to Democrat strategist Julie Roginski. And he essentially said that your party is in trouble. And he's not wrong. But Roginski basically made the statement, I don't understand, for the life of me, why Republicans who support Trump still call themselves Republicans. If they ever voted for Ronald Reagan or George Bush or worked for Mitch McConnell or any of the kinds of things that Republicans used to stand for. Well, that was the comment. Here's the smackdown that Scott Jennings did in response to that. Take a listen.
Look, I'll be glad to explain why I'm a Republican. Number one, I want lower taxes. Number two, I want conservative judges on the court.
Trump.
Number three, I want a better economy for American workers. Number four, I want a president who cares what's going on in middle America, which the Democratic Party has completely and totally abandoned. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have run this country into the ground. I want a center-right government, and most of the time they're going to do what I want to do, and all of the time she's not. And that's why I'm a Republican today. There's like virtually no politician alive that I think any other American voter agrees with all the time. And it's my right to agree and disagree. And it's also my right to vote for a direction for the government that's basically in line with where I want to be. There's two people running,
What
Trump and
direction?
Harris. Harris, none of the time is going to do what I want. And Trump, most of the time, is going to do what I want. And millions of Republicans are going to make that choice, whether they come from the Romney, Bush, McConnell, Reagan, whatever wing of the Republican Party. Millions of Republicans are making that calculation today. And the reason you're upset is because Harris is struggling, Trump is surging, and you know your party's in trouble.
He is not wrong. Not wrong at all. See, what a lot of Democrats don't seem to understand is for conservatives, and this is a serious situation that a lot of people don't seem to understand. See, Democrats, and part of the reason is because Democrats are so much into groupthink that they almost get embarrassed by their other Democrats if they don't necessarily agree with certain policies. See, in the Democrat leftist mindset, you have to agree with everything. or you are automatically assumed to agree with nothing. Conservatives are not quite that way. Conservatives believe that, hey, as long as I get about 90% of the way there, or even 80 or 75% of the way there, I'm better off than if I get a Democrat, leftist, Marxist, lunatic moron who gives me nothing. And see, this is a difference in the thought process between a leftist Democrat moron and a conservative who may or may not claim that they're a Republican. Like, for an example, I do not claim to be a Republican. I am a strict constitutionalist. Do I think that the Republican Party could do better on a lot of things? Absolutely. They are not necessarily my friends, and they do not necessarily align 100% with what I am attempting to accomplish as a voter. However, the difference is I understand that not everybody is going to think like me, and therefore there will be times where I have to make certain concessions. And the question you always have to ask yourself whenever looking at something like this, no matter what it is, you always have to ask yourself, can I live without it? And what that essentially means is, what can you live with and what can you live without? Meaning that if so let's say, for an example, you have a politician who's running and they agree with you on, say, 60% of the issues. The other 40% might have something to do with, I don't know, for an example, maybe they don't necessarily agree with you on the idea that the 10th Amendment itself would be really good to, like, clear out everything in terms of all of the bull crap stuff that's running out. Sorry, I just saw Three Chevy's comment. That's running out, in terms of what the federal government is doing. Now, I am a realist, and I understand that there are going to be some things that in reality, even though I know that the 10th Amendment would clear out everything, there are some things that it's going to be very difficult to unhook the clause. For an example, the Constitution does not say anything, zero, zilch, nothing about Social Security. The Constitution says nothing, zero, zilch, nada, about health care being a responsibility of the federal government. However, they are programs that have been solidly entrenched in our federal government system. And so because of that, I understand that we are not going to be able to extricate ourselves from those programs because they have become ingrained in the American psyche that they are one and part and parcel, I should say, of everything that the federal government does. Now, again, I'm telling you right now that neither one of those programs is actually in the Constitution of the United States as a federal government responsibility. But they exist. And therefore, if a candidate says, you know what, I'm going to keep Social Security, I'm going to keep Medicare, Medicaid, so on and so forth, I'm going to keep those, but then lines up with just about everything else that I agree with, I'm okay with that. That's fine. I'm okay with that. And I will still vote for that person because of the plain and simple fact that that person aligns with me a certain percentage of the time. I guarantee you there is not one single Democrat that would fall within that same line. And again, like I said, I am not a Republican. I am a strict constitutionalist. That's how I describe myself. And a conservative altogether. So for me, if I were to get 100% of what I wanted, there would be a lot less that I would have in common with most politicians today, because many of them are not willing to do the things that I believe need to happen in order to get our government back within its constitutional boundaries. But again, the Democrats, they don't think that way. That for them, it's an all or nothing proposition. You either get it all or you get nothing. And they, believe it or not, will turn on their own, provided that it becomes politically expedient to do so. And that's part of the reason why you'll see the left eat their own, because of the fact that, oh, yeah, we'll work with you right now, even though you don't agree with us 100%, we'll work with you right now until such time as you are no longer useful to us, and then we kick you to the curb, which is exactly what's happening with a lot of the traditional demographics that you have heard about. And by the traditional demographics, I'm talking like Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, even some white women as well. For them, it's an all or nothing proposition. For a Republican or a conservative, it's not necessarily that same way. Well, the Democrats, believe it or not, are actually starting to realize that they might very well be in trouble here. At least the Democrat media, I should say. And the reason why I'm saying that is because of the fact that, as you can see in this piece in Hot Air, NBC says Dems brace for a blue wall collapse. Now, here's the thing. Most people don't understand where the blue wall is. The blue wall is basically the states of Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, and I think Minnesota as well. I think Minnesota's in there too. But they're the top states that that typically would vote and usually vote. Thank you, Tree Chevy calls it the Rust Belt. That would typically vote Democrat on a regular basis. And unfortunately, a couple of times, those states have actually changed and voted Republican. Well, even now, there is indications that the Rust Belt, those states, the blue wall, might not be as strong as what the Democrats thought. Now, the blue wall, a couple of them voted for Trump in 2016. Then in 2020, they ended up getting him back, which contributed to Trump's loss in 2020. But now they seem to be leaning back toward Trump's way, at least according to polls. And again, we don't look at the polls necessarily. As they're generally speaking, they're one-offs and things of that nature. But they're kind of, they're getting ready for it because there's signs and indications that Trump is going to do fairly well. I mean, considering fairly well for a Republican up there in the blue wall states. And if he performs the way that current pollsters are thinking about, okay, that's going to be a bit of a hard thing for them to swallow. They're bracing for that. They're getting ready for that. And here, according to NBC News, recent discussions have, this is in the Hot Air piece, recent discussions have centered on the possibility of an anomaly happening this year with just part of the blue wall breaking the Democrats' way. The conversations have focused on whether Michigan or Wisconsin fall, in quotes, to former President Donald Trump, while 2 other states go blue, according to 3 sources with knowledge of the campaign strategy. So losing Wisconsin or Michigan would mean that even if Harris secures Pennsylvania, where both Harris and Trump have spent the most time and resources, because again, Keep in mind, like I've said on this program, Pennsylvania is the keystone state. It's the key to the entire thing this year. She would not reach the necessary 270 electoral votes to win the White House without winning another battleground state or possibly two. A senior Harris campaign official stated there has been a thought that maybe Michigan or Wisconsin will fall off. And that same official stressed the bigger concern is over Michigan. Two other people with knowledge of the campaign strategy, who, like others in this article, were granted anonymity, also underscored deep concern about Michigan. Those people still believe that all the states are close and that there are alternative routes to victory. So again, they're not sitting very comfortable in this entire situation. And I've heard early voting counts in some states, especially places like Florida, for an example. Florida, Dems were sounding off, like getting ecstatic over the early returns that were basically showing that that they were taking the lead in Florida. Well, Florida's in-person voting opened up today or yesterday, I think. It's either yesterday or today. But anyway, they had their entire lead wiped out in one day of in-person voting, early in-person voting in Florida. So things, yeah. Here we go and pray. Let's pray. Put our hands up, pray, and hope that we get a really, really good return coming up. And Bonnie just reminded it that it started yesterday. So yeah, and Mark went and voted yesterday. Thank you, Mark, for doing that. Yeah, that's right. Vote early, bank your vote, because we don't know what's going to happen in the near future with regards to any of the shenanigans that might be running on. And keep in mind, too, folks, that we may not actually know who the winner is until 3, 4, 5, maybe even a week after the election. Just keep in mind 2000. For those that are old enough to remember, just keep in mind 2000, because don't be surprised if things get drawn out that far. Okay. I'm just setting a realistic expectation for you folks. Okay. I'll be transmitting on election night, but I am not looking to, find an answer or gain an answer until after everything's already been done. And let's be honest, the reality of it is even if we get the results in, okay, even if we get the results in, you could also end up with things not being completely finalized until they certify the election in Congress in January 6th. So anyway, I guess according to Nana over on Rumble, Florida starts on different days depending upon the county. Cat Turd isn't or can't vote in person until early Saturday, or vote early until Saturday. So, well, I am jealous of all you people who are able to in-person vote. We have mail-in ballots. Now, granted, I am not going to mail it in. I'm going to drop it off at a drop box, but that's still, up to fraud, prone to fraud. Ugh, this state is horrible. It is. Anyway, moving on. Well, a couple of news articles came out and a couple of bombshells. There was a bombshell actually that came out, and I don't think anybody really watched this, but the first one, which is kind of a minor one. I mean, everybody pretty much knows this. It's no real big surprise, but Kamala Harris, I mentioned last night, has been campaigning with Liz Cheney, trying to get the Liz Cheney vote. The Liz Cheney vote isn't really that big of a vote. Most people don't like her. Rightly deserved, by the way, but apparently they did a town hall, and it was exposed quickly as a fake here in Life Zet. Kamala's fake town hall with Liz Cheney exposed before it really got started. And the reason being is because, so former California First Lady and journalist Maria Shriver, married to, of course, Arnold, the Terminator, she disclosed in the town hall when asked by the audience, are we going to be able to ask questions? And again, extemporaneously, off the cuff, Kamala's not prepared for it, so on and so forth. And she was told, and that person who was in the audience was told, no, only predetermined questions are going to be allowed. Those that know Kamala Harris and know that she is a fake and that she is a moron, she can't speak extemporaneously off script without a teleprompter, none of that stuff. She's not smart enough to be able to handle those kinds of questions. Y'all knew it was going to happen. Now, juxtapose that with Donald Trump, who spent several hours in a sorry, my chatters are going crazy. Spent hours in a town hall without any predetermined questions, just fielding questions over and over from different people. He did that. He's done that all his entire campaign, if not his entire career. So the event was held in Oakland County, and it raised eyebrows among attendees. Oop, where the heck? What happened here? That dropped way down. Raised eyebrows among attendees and on social media as it seemed to deviate from the traditional open format that is typically associated with town hall meetings. So in other words, this wasn't a town hall. There you go. A woman had inquired if they would be allowed to ask questions directly. Shriver responded, "You're not, unfortunately. We have some predetermined questions." Yeah, that's not a town hall. That's a scripted show. But, of course, Shriver was like trying to save it, I guess. She continued on by saying, "Hopefully I'll be able to ask some of the questions that might be in your head," which is bullcrap. You know that she wasn't going to be able to ask any questions that any sane voter would be asking, or any sane American would be asking of these people. Kamala Harris cannot speak extemporaneously and off script. And if you want her as your president, well, I got a saying for you. Only morons vote Democrat. Anyway, we have a new kind of sort of October surprise. Now, it's not the October surprise, okay? The October surprise, I don't think has come out yet. And, of course, time is ticking down, so sooner or later, it's going to pop. But what's kind of interesting is we've had these little tidbits of information that have been coming out about different things with regards to the Democrats as a whole, in regards to all of this. But apparently, at least according to Red State, Kamala Harris got into law school via a program that she didn't qualify for. Does this surprise anybody? Doesn't really surprise me any. So, Kamala Harris graduated from Howard University without any honors, okay? And she went ahead and applied to law school. This is in the piece. She was admitted to Hastings School of Law at the University of California. Now, Hastings, by the way, is considered a good law school, but not one of the elite. Okay, according to the piece, it ranked 80th of America's law schools. Now, anywhere, no matter where you go, admission into law school is not easy. There's a reason for it. It's a very rigorous program, generally speaking, across the board. Now, if you are an honors student, though, and you have a solid score from the LSAT, which is a placement test that you can put in, then you're generally probably going to be accepted. So in other words, if you're in the top percentage of your class and you pass and you can pass the LSAT, you're probably going to get placed or picked up. The thing about it is, though, is that she wasn't an honor student. We don't even know what her LSAT score is. She wasn't an honor student. There's no information on what she actually scored on her LSAT. We also know that she didn't pass the bar on her first try when 80% of her classmates did. So the question is, how did she, who is, kind of a run-of-the-mill, this sounds a little familiar, how did, like, Joe Biden get into law school? Well, she apparently, also keep in mind, too, that Kamala Harris did not come from a middle-class family. She came from an upper class to low high class, upper middle to low high, somewhere in there. But anyway, how did she get into it? Well, apparently she applied for a program called LEOP, which is Legal Education Opportunity Program. Now, UC Hastings created the LEOP in 1969 to make an outstanding legal education accessible to those who come from disadvantaged economic and educational backgrounds. Okay. Now, students are encouraged to submit a separate LEOP statement describing the adversity that they faced and its impact on their academic preparedness for law school. Diagnostic reports documenting disabilities and or other accommodations can be submitted as an addenda. Now, according to a political article from 2021, the author describes Harris at Hastings as, in the fall of 1986, Harris arrived at on campus at Hastings a week before most of her classmates. She was part of the pre-orientation LEOP, which had been founded in 1969, so on and so forth. Harris had come to a predominantly white institution after 4 years at a historically black university. Beyond introducing students to Socratic pedagogy, case briefing, and even exam taking, the pre-orientation also gave students of color a sense of community and a hamlet of solidarity in a cutthroat environment. Now, wait a minute. So the question is going to be, what economic problem did she have? What economic adversity did she have? What educational adversity did she have? So she was a daughter of the two college professors, grew up attending private schools in Canada. She wasn't economically or socially disadvantaged, but she did. She claimed it. So, the piece here kind of goes through her background. We've talked about it on the program here, so on and so forth. As an example, they talked about how she was immersed in Indian culture growing up in Montreal, Canada. Her family had traveled the world. Her mother was taken aback when a Head Start teacher was, quote, shocked that Harris wasn't from the poor side of Oakland. Harris's mother told him that Kamala was the daughter of privilege. Now, Harris didn't fit into the intended target demographic that the LEOP was actually designed for. But she took advantage of her ethnic heritage, at least one side of it. And then, once admitted under the program, Harris joined the Black Law Students Association. So the question that really comes out, though, is further down, where some of her students and teachers apparently, there was miscommunication, maybe, I guess. I don't know. Some of her fellow students talked about Harris's passion, but not one of them spoke of her being highly intelligent. One professor claimed that she was very polite and reserved in demeanor, sitting on the far right of the very last row in the auditorium, listening intently but not saying much. Now, California attorney Laura Powell tracked down some other information about Harris while Harris was at Hastings. During Harris's time at Hastings, she was, according to her resume, president of the BLSA, and thus likely sat in judgment of who would get into Hastings via the LEOP. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Hastings dean found out that the committee that selected students was interviewing applicants. He said that he stopped the interview process because it became clear that it wasn't accepting students based on merit, but based on political leanings. When he asked a selector about asking political questions, he didn't like the answer. The answer was, one student at the meeting said, well, we don't ask those we don't ask those questions. We likely would get Clarence Thomas's. In other words, black Republicans or black conservatives. And that particular comment confirmed the dean's worst fears. And so the interview process was stopped. So the question becomes, okay, well, if Harris didn't have an educational disadvantage, she didn't have an economic disadvantage, she didn't have a social disadvantage, what disadvantage did she have, and how did she convince this panel to let her in? My guess, as well as many of you can possibly infer, is that she probably got in because of her political leanings. There you go. She went in because she was a Marxist leftist. That's what she is. All right. It hasn't been any time recently that we've been talking about Georgia. And the Georgia, what do you call it? The Georgia elections case that was going on that has been completely stalled, by the way, 100% stalled. The Georgia Supreme Court isn't going to, or the Georgia Superior Court, I can't remember which one it is, but they're not going to actually pick it up until in early December or January, if I recall correctly. It's not going to be until after the election, so none of that is going to be an issue for Trump. But one of the things that came out here just recently is because of the fact that former prosecutor Nathan Wade went and testified on Capitol Hill in front of, let's see, where was this? It was in front of the House Judiciary Committee. Well, and they were asking him questions about it. So what came out of it? Well, first of all, what came out of it was this in the Daily Wire. Bombshell House report reveals Trump prosecutor Nathan Wade met with the White House. Yeah. He met with the White House. He actually billed time for meeting at the White House, by the way. And so it's not as though he is like trying to cover it up. He actually billed for it. In the transcripts, he doesn't clearly state. In fact, he's like, I don't remember. I don't remember. I don't remember. I don't recall. I don't recall. I don't recall. If you think I'm on broken or you're hearing a reverb or anything like that, you're not. That's how he responded to a lot of the questions. But he went ahead and met with the White House. And another big bombshell came out of it, which was that before and this is in the Washington Examiner, and I've linked to the actual transcript. You can go and take a look at it. Him and his lawyers kind of, fence back and forth with the committee about what he can answer, what he can't, so on and so forth. But anyway, Nathan Wade testifies that Fani Willis jump-started the Trump investigation before she even took office. Does this sound like something that was planned from the beginning? So he told Congress during a closed-door deposition that Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis began preparing to prosecute former President Donald Trump before she even took office in January of 2021. So here's how this breaks down and how this happened, okay? First things first, Fani went ahead and put together, or was putting together, a panel. And that panel was supposed to look for the special prosecutor in order to go after Trump. Now, admittedly, according to Nathan Wade, the panel that was, or commission, whatever you want to call it, that they put together, essentially was saying that they were looking for somebody who not only knew the law, but also would be willing to be as impartial as possible. So they tried to get somebody. And reportedly, according to Nathan, there were several candidates, one actually being a former governor of Georgia. But nobody took the job. And so because nobody took the job, they started to look at Nathan Wade as potentially being a guy. And so he started discussions. And again, this is prior to January 1st, which is when she would have taken over. And he even says it in the committee. A committee lawyer asked Wade, and there was outreach to you to be part of the search committee prior to January 1, 2021. He says, absolutely, adding that the contract started sometime after the 2020 election, but prior to her taking office. So Wade's remarks that Willis reached out to him on the day before she took office to mobilize him and others to prosecute Trump for allegedly attempting to overturn the 2020 election underscores the district attorney's aggression when targeting Trump, even as he was still in office, and challenges the 2020 elections were still playing out. Yeah. You tell me that this wasn't planned. He also testified that they were looking for someone who did not have an axe to grind against Trump, and eventually urged Wade to accept the role as the lead prosecutor, even though he didn't have any experience in any of this. None of it. According to the transcript, Wade said, so January 1st, I was part of the search committee for that newly elected district attorney, and we were tasked with trying to identify someone who could serve as lead counsel on the election interference investigation. Eventually, I guess the committee turned their guns on me and started trying to convince me to accept the role. Yeah. So in other words, this was all planned. This is just the tip of the iceberg here, people. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Now, the defendants, meaning Trump's lawyers, alleged that part of the relationship, or that the pair's relationship, presented a conflict of interest, and a judge partially agreed. That was, McAfee, leading Wade to resign from the Trump case and Trump to elevate his argument to the Georgia Court of Appeals. And his appeal remains pending. So yeah, that's coming down. Folks, this lawfare, and the key here is that you got to remember, it's not only just the fact that they started all of this before she even takes office. Okay. It's not even a part of, it's not even like that. I mean, that, okay, she's kind of preparing to do whatever it is that she's going to be doing. Don't forget too, I believe she also ran on getting Trump, just like, or maybe that was Letitia James. One of the two. I can't remember, or maybe even both. But yeah, this entire situation, of course, is, suspect in terms of the coordination and everything else. Now, keep in mind, some of the times that Wade was actually at the White House and met, too, with the January 6th committee as well. While he was up there and when he met, based on the dates, when he was meeting there, billing for 8 hours with the interview at a White House, for an example, he claimed he doesn't remember who was even the meeting in there. He doesn't even remember the meeting. He doesn't remember if it was online or in person, but yet he billed 8 hours for it. Then on September 7th and September 9th in 2022, that was on November 18th, what I was just talking about it. But September 7th and September 9th of 2022, Wade had billed $6,000 to the taxpayers for, quote, witness interviews, conference calls with DC, team meeting, but couldn't remember what the DC meeting entailed. He's trying to get out of it. I'm just telling you right now. If he could remember the contents of that meeting, I don't think he's trying to cover it up. He's trying to cover it up. In April 25 of 2023, he spent 8 hours on a Zoom call with investigators in other jurisdictions, but couldn't remember anything about that. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, come on, folks. This is obviously a frame up, a setup. Yeah. So, anyway, yeah, just a total mess. A total mess. This and hopefully if the elections go the way that we hope they do, that they will that we will have the ability to get to the bottom of these stories. Yeah. So oh boy. Coco, do you have a new name now? No, maybe not. Anyway. For those of you that are watching on the video, I am drinking root beer today. Not that really matters. It's non-alcoholic, so it doesn't really make a difference. All right. So one of the more important things, I mean, yes, the presidency is important. Okay. Yes. The presidency, the vice presidency, that is a very important position that we need to fill. And of course, we need to know that Trump is in that Trump is in office for the next 4 years with Vance backing him up. We know that's important. We also know that it's important to win the Senate, which looks right now to be a pretty decent chance and a pretty decent possibility. The one thing that's kind of questionable right now is whether or not the House is going to actually flip our way, or stay our way, or flip the other way. Well, here in the Epic Times, and I didn't have this in the show notes, but given the amount of time that I have left, we'll go ahead and cover it anyway. So here's 20 races that could actually determine the control of the House. Polling shows that some of these races are dead even. No surprise there. And the 2020 election demonstrated that House races don't always match the presidential election results. So in other words, the House races don't necessarily go completely down ballot. So these are 20 races that could potentially affect our control in the House. Let's go ahead and start off here. By the way, again, the Republicans are favored to reclaim the Senate, but the House remains uncertain. So first of all, let's talk about New York really quick here. Current Republican control of the House is largely due to party victories that happened in New York in 2022, where several Republican won districts that had voted for candidate Joe Biden just 2 years prior. So the question here, and here is the list of the Republicans. And let me see if I can. Yeah, there we go. Here's the list of the Republicans that are, and actually, that are in the district. So they have District 17, District 4, and District 19 that are all up for grabs. Now, remember, don't forget that the House, it's every 2 years. The Senate is every 6. And the Senate is actually flip-flopped on years. Half of the 6 go in 1 year, and then the other half go in a different year. So these guys are in first two, Representative Mike Lawler, who is currently in the office in District 17, is up against Mondaire Jones, who is a Democrat, also in District 17. And if Lawler gets ousted, we could have a bit of a problem because, of course, that'll be a seat that we lose. You also have District 19 and District 4, where there's 2 Republicans that are currently in the area. Now, District 4 looks like it's out on Long Island, and District 19 is a little bit outside of the city in the normal Democrat enclaves. So that's what's going on there. We also have some spots in California. Now, what's weird about California, just like here in Washington, by the way, or even in Oregon, outside of the cities generally tend to lean more Republican. It's the major cities and the major corridors in Washington and Oregon's case, and actually even in California too. There's a reason why it's called the left coast, because of the fact it's the coastal side of the states that are usually the Democrat side. The eastern sides of the states generally tend to favor Republican. They tend to be more rural. They tend to be more, smart, to say the least. But here in California, we've got what appears to be 5 seats: District 13, District 22, District 27, 41, and 45. These all have people that are up for replacements this year. Now, in the Rust Belt, which this one is going to be, this is where things are kind of running neck and neck. And keeping in mind that these 3 states were decided by razor-thin margins, particularly Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. Well, we have Republicans that are trying to flip these 2 seats, which were open because of the departures of Representative Elissa Slotkin and Dan Kildee. And both of them are Democrats. Those are in District 7 and District 8. So these are up for grabs for pretty much anybody, to be honest with you. But they are 2 seats that could help us regain and keep the control in the House. Then we have also 2 in Pennsylvania, which again, right now is the most consequential swing state at this point. We have 2 in eastern Pennsylvania, District 7 and District 8, which are up for potential pickups as well. And these are hotly contested cases. Just keep in mind, Pennsylvania, Keystone State. Yeah. Arizona, too, has a couple of people where that could potentially be a problem. These are two Republican incumbents, Representative David Schweikert in Arizona's District 1 and Representative Juan Siscomani in District 6 are both up for potential reelection or being replaced. And just to give you an idea, Schweikert won his first congressional district seat in 2022 by less than 1% of the vote. Polling right now for that seat shows a slight edge for Democrats. Iowa has a couple in particular. Miller Meeks, who won by a 7-point margin in 2022, polling conducted in August and September shows the race for her first congressional district to be a dead heat. So here she is. So it was 1 and 3, District 1 and District 3. Marionette Miller Meeks and Representative Zach Nunn, who is in District 3. This could be a bit of a problem. Yeah. Nunn won his bid by less than 1% last time. And we have Nebraska's 2nd district. Now, Bacon, of course, has had victories in this particular seat. He's had victories in the past, but this one is looking like, at least based off of polling data and stuff, that it could come down to the wire on this one. And this is District 2 out of Nebraska. So that's a possibility. Now, we also have several Democrats that are in red districts, which, by the way, I saw an article where they were talking about these Democrats. Some of these Democrats are like starting to try and sidle up to Trump's policies. Not saying these two, but some of them are trying to sidle up to Trump's policies because they see the writing on the wall. So here out of Alaska, we have a Democrat, Representative Mary Peltolas, and we have Nicholas Begich, who is a Republican. Both of them cover the entire state of Alaska. So anyway, remember Alaska switched over to that, ranked choice voting at one point. So that's how the Democrat got put into play in Alaska. So, yeah. And Republican contender Nick Begich, his recent polling shows a close race, with one poll showing at least a 1-point lead for Peltola, while a more recent poll found a 4-point lead. So there's back and forth up there. And here in my home state, this one, the current representative, who is a Democrat in Washington, this is District 3. So Gluzenkamp Perez defeated Joe Kent last time by a very slim margin here, people. And so Joe Kent is back to try and retake that area. Now, this area, for those of you that don't know, you can see it's in the southwest corner or southwest part of the state, is right across the river from Portland and Oregon. So, because the border on the bottom is the Oregon border. So, yeah, District 3 covers and encompasses Vancouver as well as a couple other things. So, yeah, these this one's going to be a close one. It was a close one before. It's going to be a close one again. And here is one in Maine. Now, the Republicans see a possibility of picking this up, which this would be interesting. This is District 2 in Maine and covers a very large portion of the state, by the way, and along the Canadian border. So, yeah, we're going to see what's going to happen here. But these races are very important. They have got to get, these good vast majority actually of these cases in really to get a good number in the House. So it's not just the president, even though that's important. It's not just the president, it's everything. All right, folks, that's it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free once you sign in, and once you sign up and sign in, search up the American Perspective channel and make sure you hit that green follow button to be notified every single time that I go live. Also, too, make sure you hit those thumbs ups and likes and everything else from all of my outlets so that you can help boost these videos and help me gain more exposure. I do appreciate it. We will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Whiskey Wednesday. Don't forget it. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.